Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. And as regular listeners will know, the theme of this podcast is typically about technology, how it works best when it brings people together. And today's guest has an inspirational story to share that began by building a community resource for 2 million parents. But that's just the beginning of her story, because she went on to create Convo Site, which is currently used by over 45,000 community leaders in 75 countries. They have 300 million members in their communities, and if that's not an example of tech bringing people together, I don't know what is. But I've probably revealed far too much already, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York, where Tamanna is waiting to share her story and highlight the power and importance of tech and community. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
So hi everyone, my name is Tamanna. I'm the co-founder at Convo Site, which is a community marketing platform. We enable community creators to monetize their communities by effectively collaborating with brands, and we give brands the opportunity to tap into these communities. We call it more like middle funnel marketing, to tap into these communities for both insights and engagement.
Excellent. And like you said, you're the CEO and founder of Baby Destination, which you started after having your first child a few years ago. But I've got to ask, can you share your origin story and where your passion for tech came from, and ultimately what put you on this path you're on today?
So I started my career in finance. I was a portfolio manager in General Motors asset management for about 9 years. So all of the passion for data, automation, I used to do that. I used to build models when I was in my finance role. I used to work with a number of quantitative tools. So I was always very intrigued by the power of data and, more importantly, distilling it into meaningful insights. When I became a mother is when this whole idea of Baby Destination came to me. And the idea really was to solve the discovery journey, that the discovery problem that a mom goes through, when she becomes a new mother. And that's where I had this idea of starting a content community platform to help moms in making better decisions. I moved back to India. I was based in New York for my entire corporate career, but then I moved back to India to start Baby Destination because I realized the need gap and opportunity is much higher in India. There's just a lot more babies that are born there, and there's not as many protocols around infant care, and there's a lack of access to experts. So I moved to India and I started building Baby Destination communities on Facebook. So we started creating informational Facebook groups on parenting. The reason we chose Facebook as a platform as opposed to building it on a separate app is because we realized that in order for a community to thrive, there needs to be connection between members. And that connection often happens when there are frequent, meaningful interactions. And there is no better platform than Facebook to enable that. It's a pull rather than a push. And that's where moms are spending most of the time. So we started building these communities, groups on Facebook. And within 3 months, we were touching close to 100,000 members. The community had very rich conversations. And that's when we started building a lot of technology to enable the growth of these communities and to get conversational insights from the rich conversations. Honestly, it was just extremely fascinating to see the richness in conversations in these communities. It just was not available anywhere else on the internet. And that's how sort of the journey started on building tools to build and scale and monetize communities.
And just to bring to life what we're talking about here, the online parenting community that you built grew into a community resource for 2 million parents, which is just phenomenal of how you use technology to do that. But can you tell me more about how it also helped you see that online communities were built and managed by passionate people all over the world, but they couldn't monetize these passions into a source of income, because that led you to solving that problem, didn't it?
Yes. So, while we were on our journey of building Baby Destination, one community after the other, and, you're right, it's now like 2 million moms, we had an opportunity to interact with, some really inspiring community leaders. And that's because we got selected by Facebook for a program called Facebook Community Leadership Program, in which they brought together 100 power admins, power community admins from across the globe, and they were providing us with some funding and a structured learning program to know each other, learn from each other. And that's where I realized that we were one of the most advanced in that cohort in terms of both the technology that we had built, the way that we had sort of automated the playbooks to build, to continue to build newer communities and scale it, and the way that we were monetizing our communities. What really struck me was that these individuals are all creating immense value in the world through their communities. They've done so much hard work, and pretty much their life is dedicated to, managing these communities, scaling them, adding value to members. But there's no way for them to earn a livelihood. It's like, how do you take your life's worth and convert it into a source of income? Because you cannot pour from an empty glass. That feeling just did not leave me when I met them, and we had 3 in-person interactions over the course of 8 months. And what struck me was, my aha moment was that everything that we've done for Baby Destination could just, all the tools, all the knowledge around monetization, it could be put onto a platform where all community admins could come, use the tools to better manage their community and to monetize. So that's where the idea of Conversite came. It's like, you go and launch a store, and then you say that, why don't I just build all the tools for store owners to be successful? So that's really, how that thought came to me, that why don't we enable community admins, and in turn they will create better communities, just fostering more and more connections. So this was in late 2019. We launched our beta version of Conversite in the fourth quarter of 2019.
It's an incredibly cool story. And with Conversite, it enabled you to build the technology tools to help community managers on Facebook, Reddit and Discord, etc., to earn from their passion and then further drive the passion economy forward. But can you tell me more about Conversite and the problems that you set out to solve, just for people that are hearing about Conversite for the very first time?
Sure. So Conversite, like I said, it helps community creators to monetize by collaborating with brands that are relevant to their members. There's a number of steps to it, right? Technology and product is a large part of it, but also another big part of this whole initiative is upskilling the community creators. They've traditionally just never monetized, right? There's no community marketing as such, which is a part of the marketing mix for brands. They're not like Instagram influencers. They're a very different persona. They just start out with a pain point to build a community. They don't start out with a business objective. And I guess that's where the difference is. It's the mindset difference. So they start out with a pain point or a passion to build a community. And later they realize that, there has to be a way to monetize. So which is where they're stuck at today. So with all of our tools, technology, and the support, our objective is to enable them to become community entrepreneurs. So we have a whole bunch of tools which help in community management, tracking growth and engagement trends, giving recommendations on what content to post, when to post, the ability for them to look at conversational insights. There's thousands and sometimes millions of conversations happening. And these are super rich conversations. This is not a hi, hello, or, just like a one word comment. It's a conversation. The ability, we have models that can help them look at insights in these conversations, right? Actionable insights. Like these are the 5 things that members in my community talk about. How can I provide more value to them by posting content, by bringing in partners that can help answer those questions? So there is an entire toolkit that we provide for community creators to manage their communities. It's also like spam control is another one. So there's a fairly advanced spam control module. And then we provide tools for these community creators to monetize. And again, monetization happens through partnership with brands or other partners who are relevant for their audience. So let's say, Neil, if you were to go and talk to, let's say you want to go and interact with a community of entrepreneurs, right? Tech entrepreneurs. The first thing that you would want to know is, what are the biggest discussion points? Like, what are the top 5 things that these entrepreneurs, the challenges that they're facing, and how could my podcast enable them or help them in one of their challenges? So when you interact with the member base in that entrepreneur community, you would effectively be telling the admin, hey, I would love to talk to your audience and help them solve this challenge, right? Or tell them how to even, do a great podcast, right? So that's really the essence of it. It's called purpose-led marketing, and we enable them to do purpose-led marketing through all of our tools.
And for people listening who thought you're building a community a parenting community resource for 2 million parents, that is impressive on its own. But Conversite's community members grew exponentially from 34 million to 300 million. And in the last 12 months, I think Conversite has made nearly 1 million in payouts to community managers around the world, which is just so inspirational. It's phenomenal. It really is. But can you tell me a little bit more about that success and what you learned along the way?
It's a very interesting question. When we started, the first set of community admins that, came to Conversite, that was some of our first users. Those are people I personally met. I told them about Conversite, and some of the reactions I used to get were like, is that even possible? Like, it's just that it's not heard of in the world. Like, who would partner with us and pay us, right? Is it even a possibility? And, just that, it's very humbling, right, to hear that. Like, these are people who have spent a lot of time and effort in building these communities, but they just don't even know the possibility of this being a means of livelihood. So initially, it was a lot of sort of discovery from our end, talking to these admins, telling them about Conversite, telling them that there is a possibility, there is a little bit of upskilling required, but we can get there. But really, after that, we went on and we built our own community of community admins. So that's one thing I think we do reasonably okay. And we have a community for community admins called Growth and Monetization for Community Admins. It's a Facebook community where now we have over 2,500 community creators. And that's where we started sharing a lot of information on how to grow your community and how to sustain your community, how to monetize. We started doing a lot of workshops. We've done over 200 workshops till date. We started putting out a lot of relevant content, again, around both community management and monetization. And 80% of the communities that we have on Conversite today, which is about 40,000 communities with 350 million members, they've all been acquired organically. It's either through our own community or through referrals or through content, through our SEO. So they come to Conversite to read relevant content, and that's how they find us and then install Conversite. So the bigger thing is not the sort of, where we are at today. I think the bigger thing is that it's all been organic. We didn't know that when we started. We had thought we'll have to do a lot of paid marketing to get in front of these admins again and again to just tell them about Conversite and this possibility. One more thing that we did from the get-go was we set up a community success team. And initially, I remember everyone was like, there's a success team for customers who pay you, and these admins are not paying you. So like, what's the concept of success? And fundamentally, this team is responsible for the success of community creators, right? So upskilling them and ensuring they handhold them through their first monetization experience. They set them up for success. So we were very clear that, this has to be a fundamental part of what we do. Like, we have to be responsible for upskilling them. So it's the community success team and our own community and our content and SEO, which leads to most of this, the admins discovering us.
And I'm curious, what kind of feedback have you received from community managers? Did you get to hear any stories from them?
Yeah, so that's one thing that keeps us going. Our NPS is 85.
Wow.
Our user NPS. It's, think about it, right? We talk about this a lot internally. We're really privileged to be in this spot, like to have an opportunity to transform their lives. It's a very big privilege. And I think, which is why we get tremendous user love. It's so, like, I'm sure whenever this podcast is out, before I could even share it, I'm sure some community admin will find it and share it. It's like, the kind of love that we get. We recently got selected in the Forbes 100 companies to watch out for list. And before I could even do a post in our community, there were like 3 posts there. And it was so, like, I'm so overwhelmed. Like, even now I have goosebumps when I talk about the kind of user love that we get. It is so inspirational. It's like you do everything to give them wings. And then, once they're on that journey, they're just so thankful, not only to us, but they want to pay it forward, and they help other admins to get to that level. It's a feeling. It's hard to explain, right? NPS is just a number, but we just see it every single day. So, really fortunate to be doing this for them.
I absolutely love that. And considering, like you said, we're talking of figures of 300 million a few moments ago, but to still have that beating heart of the communities that are out there and supporting and helping each other, that's what makes it all worthwhile. And something else that stands out is you've also caught the eyes of leading investors such as Unilever Ventures and Qualgrow, and have recently announced a $9 million investment into your company. So can you expand on that and what it means to you, and especially on that journey that you've been on? Sure.
So again, I think we were very fortunate to have investors who really believed in this idea. It could be relatively easier to maybe raise investments if you're building something which at least has a concept in the world, right? Which has been done or is being done by others. For us, when we had this idea, it was net new. Like, no one's heard of it, right? Like, brands don't typically go and market in communities. There's like, no one's heard of the term community entrepreneurs. So it's a very new thing. It's like creating a new category. So our first set of investors, which is Sequoia and Ivy Cap Ventures, which was our seed round of 4 million last year in March. They actually invested in us at an idea stage. I mean, we had baby destination, but when we just spoke about this idea and the gap that we see in the world, for them to have conviction in us was a very big validation. And that money has really helped us because we don't charge anything like to the admins, right? It's a free tool for the admins only because they're not monetizing today. So where would they pay from? So our idea was to get them up to a level and then possibly have, certain premium features. So that investment was very, very, very important for us to get to this level. And now our recent fundraise, in which our earlier investors have participated, as well as Qualgrow and Unilever Ventures, have led the round. This investment is primarily for growth. We want to scale now. When we started, a lot of the efforts were in India, and we've now started scaling in US US and Southeast Asia. So this capital will be very, very important to scale our efforts. We're also working on Conversite 2.0, which is where we want to ensure a massive discovery of these community creators. One problem is that there's no way to even discover them. So we're creating a very big discovery platform for community creators and also more self-serve models for D2C brands to tap into these communities. So this capital will really help us in our, product and tech development efforts and also geographical expansion.
Fantastic. And what's next for you? Where do you go from here? I appreciate there might be a few things you can't share with me yet, but is there anything you can share about the road ahead?
So, like I said, our North Star is enabling community admins to become community entrepreneurs. That's the one metric that we obsess with internally, is payouts to community admins. That is our North Star. And like you said, we've paid out about $1 million so far to community admins. This year we want to be able to pay out $2 million. Over the next 5 years, we want to create $100 million worth of revenue for community admins. So it's a very ambitious goal, but given the opportunity that's out there, there's so many communities. There's like 70 million community creators in the world that are managing like 1.8 billion people in those communities. And there's all sorts of brands, right, across categories that could really benefit and add value to their end consumer by tapping into these communities meaningfully. So there's a huge opportunity out there. And really, that's our North Star. So a lot of efforts will be, like I said, for expanding geographically across categories of communities and brands, and then building tools to ensure that there is more and more discoverability of communities in the world.
That's a beautiful moment to end on. But before I do let you go, as a little treat for your community members listening all over the world, I always like to have a little bit of fun with my guests. You've shared with me your origin story, where you got here, but I'm now going to ask, what was the soundtrack to that origin story? Is there a particular song or piece of music that has accompanied you throughout your journey, or just helps you get your head in the zone before going on stage or landing a big meeting? Is there a song that means anything to you that we can add to our Spotify playlist?
Is there a song? Let me think. We should start doing that, actually. Maybe we'll just play like a fun song, right? Just because we don't really have a theme song like that, but maybe we can just play I Got a Feeling.
Oh, no, that sounds good. That sounds good. Yeah, we can go with that. I'll add that to the Spotify playlist. And before I let you go, for anyone listening that would like to find out more information about Conversite and the work you're doing there, what's the best way of finding Conversite online and contacting your team if they've got any questions?
So you can find us at conversite.com. If you want to contact us, you can reach out to me. It's my first name, Tamanna, at conversite.com. Tamanna at conversite.com. Or you could send me a message on LinkedIn. I usually, respond to most of the messages that I get.
Excellent. Well, like I said at the very beginning of the podcast, growing a community resource for 2 million parents was impressive on its own. But the fact that you've gone on from there with Conversite and community members growing exponentially from 34 million to 100 million, and in the last 12 months alone making nearly $1 million in payouts for community managers, is inspirational. I always say at the end of every episode, technology works best when it brings people together. And the way that you're looking after community managers and communities, and from what just the way you've been talking to me today, that passion for the community and how that community respond to you really is what it's all about. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much, Neil. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for having me. Wow, what an amazing and inspirational story that really brings to life the importance of tech and community. And I wonder which of their 3 million strong community will be sharing this podcast first. And if you or your community would like to share your story on this podcast, there is a seat here with your name on it. This is your true calling. You've manifested it. All you need to do now is email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You get me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk, where you'll find links over 1,800 podcast episodes. So I will wait patiently for the community to come back to me and maybe get you on here. If you've got any questions, please send them over too. But it's time for me to go now. I'll return again tomorrow, same time, same place. I'll be waiting patiently in your podcast feed when you swipe. But more than anything, just a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.